Patience is the first weapon you need for hunting. You can learn a lot by watching a cat hunt. They will sit motionless for interminable amounts of time, waiting for their prey to make just the wrong move, and then they'll pounce. They're cold, they're calculated, they are specifically driven by one goal: finish their prey. Today, President Joe Biden made that false move that, if it was in the wild, would have been his end. I'm sure many of you are aware, earlier today, he gave this statement about actions that he's going to allegedly be taking to address certain constitutional rights he doesn't perceive as necessary. Well, he made a mistake. He let something slip. He let it come out of his mouth, and it is going to open Pandora's box. This might be the easiest video I have done in years. Now, I'm going to play what he said today, and then we're going to jump back into the Wayback Machine, and we're going to go back to 2010, and we're going to listen to him speak at another place, and then see if we can jive the two. So, without any further delay, President Joseph Robinette Biden, 45th of the United States.
Nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment. They're phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights at stake from what we're talking about. But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. We call it freedom.
Wait a minute. What did he just say? No amendment to the Constitution is absolute. Those were his words. That's what he believes. Now, that's a very interesting belief. No amendment to the Constitution is absolute. Now, let's jump into the Wayback Machine. Here is 2010, then Vice President Joe Biden speaking, eulogizing Senator Robert Byrd.
He was fiercely devoted, as you've all heard, to his principles. Even once he became power, he always spoke truth to power, standing up for the people he proudly was part of. And you've heard it many times a day, but it bears repeating again in defense of the Constitution he revered. I always wore a flag pin, but I was afraid he'd be looking down today, because every time I'd wear the flag pin on the floor, he would grab me, take my pin, and put on a Constitution pin. That's the pin I'm wearing. So, boss, I'm wearing the pin.
Now, that's an interesting thing to say. You're honoring this man, calling him boss. And every time he saw you on the floor of the Senate, he took off your flag pin and he replaced it with a Constitution pin. I wonder if, God rest his soul, Senator Robert Byrd, would have agreed with your statement about no amendment to the Constitution being absolute. But I'm a big believer in facts. So, let's talk about facts for just 1 second. What are some antonyms of absolute? Since no amendment to the Constitution is absolute, clearly then, all of them need to be followed by usually, probably, conditionally, provisionally, sometimes, indefinitely. You see, a lot of people stop after the first 10, the Bill of Rights. But if you go down, and like he said, no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. Who knows what the 16th Amendment says? Oops, hold on. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on income. Usually, provisionally, perhaps, maybe. There's amendments that prohibit slavery. I guess we have to put usually after that too, don't we? And then there's also the 14th Amendment that clears up Article 1, Section 2, meaning that presidential elections now are maybe, probably, perhaps, provisionally. And if you go through all of the amendments and you start adding the words conditionally and maybe and possibly, non-absolutely to them, they start to have a different tone. See, the first 10, the Bill of Rights, which is what a lot of people focus on, are those that protect the people. But there's also amendments that have been passed to the Constitution that give the federal government far more power than what it should have. Like, for example, the terms of the President and Vice President shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and terms of senators and representatives at noon the 3rd day of January. Maybe. Provisionally. Perhaps. I wonder which other amendments we can look at and say they're not absolute, like the right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president. Maybe. Maybe not. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Conditionally. Hopefully. Maybe. I mean, and look, I am just taking the president at his word. His factual word. What he said. What he said is no amendment to the Constitution, no matter what, is absolute. That opens up the door. This guy just goofed in a way he can't even comprehend yet by saying this. Because at some point, someone's going to go, wait a minute, really? All amendments are subject to the whims of Congress? The whims of an executive? Funny thing, I should actually continue now that I mentioned that. Continue this. Listen to what he says next here, eulogizing Senator Robert Byrd.
Robert C. Byrd said many things, but he once said, as long as there is a forum in which questions can be asked by men and women who do not stand in awe of a chief executive, and one can speak as long as one's feet will allow one to stand, the liberties of the American people will be secure. 11 presidents knew Robert C. Byrd. He served, as he pointed out, concurrently with them, not under them. And 11 presidents, where they all here and 2 are here, can attest to the fact that he always showed respect, but never deference, and he stood in awe of none. He had
stood in awe of none. And what he was referring to there by speaking as long as your feet will hold you up was the filibuster. And Senator Joe Manchin reaffirmed the beliefs of Senator Byrd recently when he said there is no way I'm ever going to get on board with changing the filibuster, which actually led to this statement today by Senator Biden. So it's come full circle. This guy is at a point now where he is beyond the ability to come back from the things that he said. I don't think he even realizes it. I don't even think his advisors realize it yet. Because once this gets out, what he said then, what he's saying now, what his values were then, what his values are now, he stands no chance against whoever runs against him in 2024. So, anyway, God bless. Have a great night. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.